Hello everybody, it's Chris here from the Engraver Studio. I'm going to do a little demo on sculpting a flower. This is a job that I'm working on, and it's basically really kind of a Belgian style with the English scroll and then the ribbons and floral, but instead of just cutting and shading it, I'm sculpting the flowers in it, and also the ribbon and everything. So what I've been doing is getting the English scroll background done first, and then I'll do the shading on it later. But what I wanted to show, though, is how I go about sculpting one of these flowers now, and the leaves. You can see, I didn't cut this thing perfectly. It just isn't necessary, and you'll see why in a moment. And then after I cut the outline, I go ahead in with flat graver and kind of deepen this and along the edges of the flower here, and then just take a round graver that I made and kind of cut it out, the different lobes of the leaves, and from there I'll go ahead and put form to it. And then I use two different hammer points. One is a little smaller, it's oval, or this bean shape as I call it, and the other one's a little bit bigger for kind of smoothing it when I'm all done. So, all right, so I always start, I leave the center and work from the outside in, so I'm going to start here with the leaves. So basically, some of this is really displacement. I'm going to turn this thing a little more sideways. It's easier to work under the scope that way. There we go. So I basically just come in and form these three lobes on the leaves here. Okay, so that's really the kind of the rough in part. Now I'm going to go ahead and work on the flower. So I think a little bit about the perspective when I'm doing that, in that the stem is coming in here, and this part is closer, and so I think about that a little bit so that when I'm forming the petals, it looks right when I'm done. course, I'm not trying to make all the flowers uniform by any means. I don't want that. I want it to look natural when I'm done. So all right, so there's everything roughed in. Now I'm going to go to basically the same punch, same hammer point, except it's larger. And again, I'm going to start back here. And this is just to smooth things out. Now don't worry too much about where it connects right to the flower, underneath the flower, because I'm going to shade these as well when I'm done. I'm not just going to leave them, because they have to, I'm going to actually put some shade lines in, and also all this gets shaded around the outside of it. But what I do is I just hold it down and drag it, and it smooths it out quite well. And I do want to leave those edges. I don't want to go right to the edge. If I was doing a different kind of sculpting, I would actually come up and bring these tips and stuff down and give it even more form. But because of the style that I'm doing, I can't do that here because it'll get all confused with the background. So. Okay, you can see it's much smoother. And now the flowers. What I'm doing is I'm holding this in at a more abrupt angle here on the back side, and that's because of the, again, trying to give it a little bit of that perspective. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and What I usually do on these centers is kind of hold it like a regular graver and then go around and just give it one hit to smooth the edges. This makes it nice because you can really control the way the metal and where it's moving. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and do the stem here. Goes to another leaf over there. These little intersections are a little bit fussy, but you can use it to almost like stamping. Okay, and usually from there, the only other thing I do other than the shading is to take I just use a wire around a fine steel wire brush just by hand, and I use that to kind of polish a little bit. I mean, not really make it bright or shiny or anything, but just kind of smooth it up. Yes, the punches are textured, so I get this nice kind of a nice satin finish, and I don't do any other kind of sanding or stoning or anything like that. Just don't think that it's necessary. Let me give you a straight on view now. There you go. So there's a couple of flowers, and when these get shaded, they really look, even nicer. And then the shading that occurs around them to make them pop from the background. Doing this kind of work it's tedious with all the background. Then you end up covering half of the work that you did with shade lines. But it's a style that I like, and that's what the customer wants. So.